Welcome to Archaeogaming with SASA. Today we are playing Civilization 6. So yay, welcome everybody. Shannon, I guess you can go to the next slide. But anyways, what is SASA? SASA stands for Save Ancient Studies in America. It's our mission to reverse the current downward trend in the study of the ancient world by engaging the public and bringing together students and scholars to share their passion for the study of the ancient world in order to inspire a vast new generation of students. So please go to saveancientstudies.org, check out what SASA is doing. We have like endless projects, really cool stuff going on, especially on our events page has the list of all of our live events. So RSVP to those. They're live streamed always on Twitch, and then except for Archaeogaming, they're also live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. So Shannon, you can go to the next slide, please. Maybe. There we go. Oh yeah, okay, so these are all of our social media handles. So like I said, our live streams are live on Facebook, but also we post basically every day of the week during the week, 5 days a week on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and then all of the recordings of our live events and some of our other posts that we have on Facebook from our Inspire campaign, like Ancient Kitchen and Ancient Fan Fiction, are also on our YouTube channel, so go and check those out and follow us. Also, if you follow us on YouTube, then you'll get a notification when we go live, and on Twitch and Facebook. So next slide, please. Okay, just some event protocol. Be kind and respectful. Listen and ask thoughtful questions throughout the event. Please send in questions on Twitch during the event. Like, that's why we're doing this, because we want to, explore the places that you want to explore in the game, see things and ask questions about things that you're seeing in the game, how they made it, why it's there, if it's historically accurate, etc. So anyways, please be patient with technology and those administering it. SASA live events are usually live streamed on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, but Archaeogaming, if anyone came to our first Archaeogaming, it was on all of them, and it made everything really slow. So now we are only doing Archaeogaming on Twitch, and then the recordings will be saved on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and then, of course, have fun. Next slide, please. Okay, yep, so this is just our ad for today's event, which of course is happening now, and we're about to jump into it and start playing Civilization 6. Next slide, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tina.
Right, thank you. Thank you for introducing us. Welcome everybody to our second Archaeogaming event ever at SASA. So our first event we played Assassin's Creed, and now we are going to play Civilization, and more specifically Civilization 6. So in a minute, I'm going to introduce our two specialists that we have here on hand, who will be playing the game and talking about it. But first, let me introduce myself again. To those who don't know me yet, I've been doing a lot of SASA events in the last couple of weeks, so I'm sorry if this is kind of a repeat or saying the same thing over and over again, but maybe some of you are new. So my name is Tine. I'm an archaeologist working on the ancient Near East, and more specifically biblical archaeology. So I do archaeology of Syria, Palestine, ancient Judaism, and early Christianity and its material culture, more specifically Hebrew Bible, New Testament, and all its material sources. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. In the US, of course. I am not American, as you can hear. I'm originally from Belgium, and I moved to the US about 6 years ago for my doctoral studies. Now, I got into SASA because I've always wanted to have a career where I can do outreach with the general public, by which I mean I love doing academic stuff, but I also want to translate the sometimes difficult jargon that academics use into more easy, understandable language, so that everybody can understand what we're doing, the kind of research that we are doing. So I'm very interested in museum studies, very interested in writing popular books, so that we can spread the knowledge of the ancient world, and in my case, the ancient Near East, to everybody. And I think SASA is a perfect example of that, where we are trying to get everybody interested into ancient cultures, the ancient world, and bring it into your living room. You don't even have to go anywhere, and we can get you all the information that you need. So please, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you can, and then you will be kept up to date of all our events that we have. We are doing, for the moment, a million different projects with SASA. We want to set up databases where you will be able to search where you can study the ancient world. We want to set up fellowships programs. We want to set up mentor programs. A lot. So this is just the beginning. We are only getting started with SASA. Anyway, enough about me. Let me introduce our two guests for today, and I'm so excited that they were willing to join us. And let's start with ladies first. Shannon Martino, welcome.
Help here. So my name is Shannon Martino. I teach a lot of classes to students who have never taken them before about the ancient world. I teach art history, humanities, all sorts of things. And I know how important the mission of SASA is to get students interested in this. And so I was very happy when Tine approached me to work on this project about Civ 6, especially since I had worked on a paper about the subject, and I had really started writing the paper because I liked the game so much. So I'm excited to play the game with all of you here, and I'm happy to answer any questions along the way that I'm able to answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. And sorry, guys, for the difficulties here. We are trying. Getting back to our most experienced archaeogamer, who knows a lot more about technology and is helping us out right now, Mr. Aris Politopoul. You want to present yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Aris Politopoul. I am a lecturer at the at Leiden University at the Faculty of Archaeology, where I teach the archaeology of the ancient Near East. I generally teach all about the development of cities, the development of early empires, and the archaeology of Assyria. And I'm also a postdoctoral researcher at the Leiden University Center for Arts and Society, where I study ancient board games, particularly ancient board games of the ancient Near East. Through all sorts of experimental methods, with the past play lab that we developed together with my colleagues Cecil Lamas and Anna Small. I'm also a founding member of the Value Foundation, where we do all sorts of stuff with video games and archaeology. In the last 2 days we were running the Interactive Past conference online as well.
Which was a lot of fun, if I might interject. I attended, and it was great.
And you gave a great talk as well. And yeah, I've been playing Civilization for a long time. I think together with Angus and now Omar as well, we have streamed, I guess, about 100 hours of Civilization. So,
yeah, so you've almost finished the game then.
No, it has a lot in it. We're also writing a paper on the game as well for the ancient Near East that Tine was so kind to invite us to do so, focusing on the representation of Persia in the game, which is an interesting topic, I think. So that I live in the Netherlands. If anybody's in the Netherlands, let me know.
Okay, let's start playing Civilization 6 and see how it goes.
Okay.
So, I've absolutely never played Civ 6, so I will need some introduction myself. Shannon, you want to just introduce a game to people who probably, or who might have never been able to play, and just let us know what it's about and what it does, and how do you play, and how do you win, and how do you lose?
Oh, wow, that's a lot. I will go ahead and say a little something, and then if Aris wants to add, feel free. So right now I have it set up so that you can play as the Sumerian Empire. There are several different civilizations that you can play as in the game. And when you choose a civilization, you have a ruler that you can choose to play as. Depending on which version of civilization you play, there's more than one for some civilizations. Now, when you choose this ruler, there are usually benefits to playing as that ruler or that civilization, which you can see listed here, hopefully, on the screen. So, for example, one of the benefits is when you capture a barbarian outpost, which is one of the things you need to do because the barbarians attack you starting in the beginning of the game, especially depending on your difficulty level. Then you receive a reward in addition to the usual gold. Now, these rewards that they talk about from tribal villages, these are sort of random villages distributed around a map of the game, which you'll see a little bit better when we start. And these villages will often give you technology boosts, or they'll give you more population, or they'll give you a scout to go, searching for more technology boosts and population and other benefits. The other one that you see particularly in terms of features and abilities here are the war carts, which is a land unit that the Sumerians get pretty early on, and it is a little bit more powerful than the other land units in the same sort of progress in terms of civilization. And then you also get to build a ziggurat. You can build multiple ziggurats, in fact, which is which is fun to have multiple ziggurats in one city as an improvement. And then another one is if your alliances get you sort of more points in the end of the game.
Shannon? So what you're basically is saying that the game is you are a civilization yourself or a culture, and your goal is to conquer the other ones, the other cultures in the game.
Yes.
And do that through various ways, and you can get points for using certain strategies. Is that what the game is about?
Yes, that's a good simplified version. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm talking about the basics here. So
no, I know. I'm sorry. This is, it stuck in my head, and I was probably doing too much prep for today. So, yes. So that's the basics. And this now you also know about this particular civilization, which is the only one we're going to play today, even partially. All right, and you can see Gilgamesh here. They have some really nice art for the screen. So let's go ahead and start.
So is this the character that you are going to be playing at, or?
Sort of. This is the character that it is the ruler of your civilization, but you don't walk around as this character. This is, this screen here is practically the only time you actually see yourself in the game. So.
Okay. This is a very different game from Assassin's Creed, right?
It's very different. Yes.
Okay.
When you walk around in this game, you're really moving around your other characters, your other parts of your civilization. Aris, did you want to add anything before we start?
Yeah, like civilization is this. In terms of how it's defined, our civilization is what we call a 4X strategy game. So it's a strategy game. It's not a first person or an action adventure game like Assassin's Creed. But then you are controlling multiple units of a given civilization or whatever faction. And it's called a 4X strategy game because it's defined by the fact that there are four main things that you have to do. The 4Xs, you have to explore the map that you are spawning, and we will spawn on a map, and you have to expand upon the map, so explore and then expand, and you have to exploit the resources around you, and then eventually exterminate the opponents.
Oh, wow.
I have to say, I try to stay away as long as possible from exterminating.
I
try.
Not always,
no.
It's not always defined as literally killing them, but also
right.
It can be in the form of, in civilization in particular, it can be in other forms like cultural domination or religious domination.
Domination of the world. Like we know that America is the military powerhouse, but China is actually she could be ruling the economy, kind of like that.
Yeah, for example.
Yes.
In this case, you could win by winning the space race, for example, which is
Oh
also
wow.
Yeah.
an homage to the end of the Cold War, sort of, I
As
guess.
Sumerians, you can play as Sumerians and win the space race.
All the way to
Yes.
the end. Yes.
Yeah.
You play for
Wow.
thousands of years in this game.
That is
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, let's get started. I want to see this game.
All right.
This volcano is quiet now, but it could erupt again at some point.
So, one of the things you should know about this version that I'm playing, this is a version that has an expansion that adds sort of climate and more geology to the game. And so, in this particular version, they actually have volcanoes that will erupt, and they can be destructive, but they can also add fertility to the soil around your town. So, they're kind of interesting addition to the game.
Oh wow, that's very realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a Settlers of Catan kind of map.
It is. It wasn't always this kind of hex map, but it has been for the last two versions, I believe.
Okay, well, I've played that board game a lot, so I guess I can understand here what's going on.
Right. So one of the first things you do is you usually get a settler and a warrior, as you can see here. And so your best bet is to just go ahead and build a city wherever they put you at the beginning of the game. And it's usually an okay place. So you don't want to move too far, otherwise you waste a whole turn. So I'm going to go ahead and found my city. And it does remove the woods, so they warn you, unless you have all the warnings turned off.
Something historic,
Okay.
worthy of being celebrated and remembered for generations to come.
So one of the things they added in some of the expansions was this kind of history book, that's, tells everyone, what you've accomplished during certain eras. And it leads you to a couple more bonuses sometimes.
Oh wow! So this is perfect for our historian art part. So it's talking about the citizens of Uruk.
Yes, exactly. So the cities in the game are usually named after the most famous cities of that civilization. So you can change the names if you want, but I usually just go with whatever names they've given.
Yeah, the idea behind this is that for each civilization, either the capital of said civilization or the most defining city will be always the starting city. So for the case of Sumerians, we're going with Uruk. But if you play as Persia, you go with Pasargadae or anything really. And then...
City to start with, though. Look at that building. Those are not a couple of huts.
No.
No, you're already a city, so...
Wow, that was fast.
And the designs, they try to base them off of, something historically. So if you zoom in here, this is as far as I can zoom in. But you can find more of their art online if you look it up. You can see like the blue that's incorporated here. You've got a couple of mud brick buildings around there. And then you can also see, if I zoom in, some of the resources that are around the city. So the resources you start with for this city, in this particular game, it's always different, are truffles.
Yes, such a staple of every basic economy.
Well, particularly the Sumerians. And then you also have stone, of course. And you can see how fertile the land is based on how many of these little corn icons there are, for example. You don't have to have all this turned on, but I figured I'd leave it on for now for everyone to see. And then you can see not too far away there are cows and also more corn.
Well, would they have had those kind of black and white cows in the year 4000 before that?
No.
But
yeah,
this is what a cow, looks like. Everyone recognizes a cow looks like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is more about recognizing the animal or the fact that it is a
So
resource.
they didn't go for historical accuracy here. They just went for brand recognition.
Yeah.
To some extent, yes.
It's a bit complicated as in theory. So one of the interesting things with civilization is that it always starts at 4000 BC, right? So that is plays with the idea that the first city, Uruk in this case, was founded around 4000 BC. So
Right.
that is what Sid Meier already from Civilization 1. So this goes back to the original civilization. In every civilization, you start at 4000 BC, and that is no matter which civilization you play. You might play as the Netherlands, you still start at 4000 BC.
Oh, they wish.
Yeah.
You're gonna
because
get
of that,
someone mad.
but yeah, because of that, you get to have like also so resources can be there is corn, for example, which
Right.
it's unlikely that there would have been corn. Um,
Yes.
Yeah.
so you get all this stuff that might be a little bit anachronistic, but it has to do with just it's a sort of a placeholder for the resources around your land.
Right. And
Right.
it's about game balance too. You want
Yeah.
all of the civilizations to have access to roughly the same kinds and amounts of resources.
Yeah, but they could have, for example, like have the labels or the icons change over time according to the historical period that you're in. Not that I'm being very demanding.
Yeah, they definitely could. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But there are stuff that are being added, right? So, for example, now we don't see oil reserves, but once you have the technology to extract oil, then you will start seeing oil reserves.
Right. And the same for iron, aluminum, all those sorts of
Yeah.
things. So
So you do go into the Iron Age at some point.
yes.
Oh yeah, wait, it's much later than our current age, like our modern age.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I'm just saying that like iron gets invented at some point in the game.
Right.
yes.
So I as you can see, I moved this warrior out because I set it on a relatively easy mode. So I'm not really worried about my city at all, and I'm going to send him out to explore. Before I do that, though, I need to choose a technology to start with. And you have little advisor symbols next to the technology. Let me move my head over here so you can actually see it. Okay, so you can see the little heads where they recommend the different kinds of technologies. So they're recommending mining or pottery as the first ones. And pottery gets you closer to irrigation, so that's kind of useful. But mining also helps you with building. You can see I have the stone right here. So I'll go with pottery for now. And then you have to choose production. So production shows up on the other side of the screen here. And you can choose a scout, which can move a lot faster than your warrior to explore. So that's pretty useful. And you can see you already have a war cart. So like right away, you have 4000 BC carts to help you go fight other civilizations. So
Yeah,
yes,
the war card is as we said, it's the unique unit of
Right.
the Sumerians. Other civilizations don't have it. The choice, of course, for putting the war card in for the Sumerians is because there is this idea that the first wheeled war machine, or the first kind of device that had wheels and was used in war, chariot, so to speak, but it was not really a chariot, more like a war wagon, was invented in ancient Mesopotamia, somewhere in the first half of the third millennium BC. And then it's also one of these things that we find in the Royal Cemetery of Ur, for example, they have found, and on the standard of Ur, you see these war wagons that are trampling over the enemies. And so they went for this as a unique unit because it's the first time that we have this type of war machine for the Sumerians.
so
Nice.
yes.
That's a historical detail that they integrated.
Well, so this is one of the things that's added into this one of these expansions that I told you about, and so you have a drought in this area, which means that it's not going to be as productive. Luckily, it's outside my city bounds now, so I can just ignore it.
So can you zoom in on the city itself and the architecture? Can we talk about that?
Sure. So the architecture will get more elaborate as we go on. Right now, you can see that we just have a few mud brick buildings. Some of them are a couple stories tall. I don't know if you want to, if anyone else, like Aris, do you want to say anything about the architecture that's here?
I mean, there is an attempt to resemble sort of an Oriental early architecture. By and large, the way they approach architecture is they do it in batches, so to speak. So a lot of civilizations will share the same type of architecture in early on. So Oriental civilizations, for example, will by and large use this type of architecture that we see here, and this is because there are just too many civilizations in the game to have unique unique architectural features for every single building. But when you build a ziggurat, for example, for the Sumerians, which is a unique building for the Sumerians, then we get a little bit more characteristic Sumerian architecture.
Right.
And then when you do, I can talk about the ziggurat and whether it's accurate or not.
Yes, exactly. I mean, so with the architect.
You can't zoom in all the way. I see like a grain silo maybe in the back, that white dome
Right.
thing.
Yeah, so this is unfortunate. This is as far as I can zoom in the game.
Right.
But yes, there are things in there that and like the color choices sometimes are tied specifically to the civilization. But you know, as you move on, you know, everyone gets skyscrapers by the end, for example. So
Yes. Oh, I would love to see how skyscrapers look like, inspired by Sumerian architecture or color scheme.
wouldn't we all?
Cool. That would be amazing.
So when you're moving, go ahead.
Sorry, I would say, okay, you moved, you explored your territory now.
Right. Right. So if you move onto an area that's hilly, it takes longer. So just for the sake of now, I'm just going to go someplace that's easier to explore. So you can move, you know, 2 spots when you're not moving over hills or mountains. Well, mountains you can't move over, but you know, through forests it takes longer. You can see we have another resource here, gypsum. That's at least pretty, you know, accurate when you're talking about Mesopotamia. So
Yeah.
so that's another useful resource here. It's a luxury resource, so it's something that you can actually trade too.
What would they do with gypsum?
Like in the game?
No, in reality, in life, would it fit for this culture?
So you would carve reliefs. You would carve, you know, figures. That's mostly what you find, but a lot later in Mesopotamia. So that would be something you could use in the game. It's really just used as you know, something to help you trade better with other civilizations.
Okay. Cool.
So it helps you gain money as you play the game too, which is important for getting new units. It's important for you know, hurrying up production and things like that.
So what kind of money is used? What kind of currency is used here?
Gold.
Yeah, just this coin. There is no
Yeah.
no actual currency.
Okay. You just get tokens.
Yes.
Coin tokens.
Yes.
Yeah, that thing that is, you know, something.
My dissertation on coins, so of course I'm interested in all kind of the invention of coinage and numismatic research.
I mean,
But
it is included in the game. So if we open up the tech tree,
Here,
at
I
some
can.
point,
Yeah, I can do that.
we can have a look at the fact that all of these terms, so coinage and currency and stuff, are being
Yeah.
invented at some point, and then what happens is not that the currency itself changes or that we have coins all of a sudden, but then you get all sorts of other perks and bonuses, or the way that you're using trade, for example, changes slightly. So it's more
Right.
like there are basic resources, and then the stuff that you can do with these resources change based on how far you've advanced in technology.
Yeah, and the better, the more you've advanced, you know, in your sort of economic studies, the more trade units you get. So the more things that you can trade with other civilizations, the more roads that you can create, because the trade units also create roads.
okay.
So you can see up here there are bananas. So that's another resource that I could get if I build another city soon. So this is somewhat this is a turn-based game. So you know, when it's telling us to please wait here, it's because the other civilizations are somewhere on the map doing something, even though you haven't encountered them yet.
So are you playing live now on the internet against people, or is this against the computer?
So yeah, this is just against the computer. Again, for the sake of ease, although I often just play against the computer because I find it relaxing.
I mean, it's a bit problematic to play online Civilization because it's not a very balanced game, so it's not super interesting to. You usually end up playing against people who are so good that you just have
Yeah,
no
that's true
hope.
too.
But it's difficult enough to play against the computer.
Yes.
Particularly on the higher difficulties, it's difficult enough. So you don't need to play against.
Yeah.
But the games that you play online are faster because it's called the online pace of the game, and it takes significantly less time, so you can finish a game within a couple of hours.
Yeah. So now I'm going to create a settler here, and this will decrease the city's population by 1 once it's done. So you can't make one unless you have more than 1 person within your city. And now I have this scout here. So usually what I do is I send it to go automatically explore, but for the sake of us right here.
Can I ask really quick about the bananas?
Of course. Yes.
I can't get over it now. There's no way that that's historically accurate. Bananas are something that's in every game.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay,
I'm glad to clarify that for you. All right. Yes, go ahead.
So the population in the city, the 1 and 2, and the decrease actually represents, in game terms, it represents about 100,000 people. So if you have one population, it's 100,000 people in the game. So that's when you create a settler, in theory. 100,000 people leave your city, go find another city.
So now there are 200,000 people in a rook.
Yes.
Realistic.
No, it's although I mean Uruk would have been especially somewhere towards the end of
Yeah.
somewhere around 3,000 would have been pretty big.
Yeah, but not 4,000 BCE, which we are still in, right?
Yes. Well, we're at 3,700 BC now.
Yeah. I see that. So does time go like automatically? So even if you don't do anything, time just moves on?
Well, I mean, you have to say next turn, but as long as you're saying next turn, time does move on automatically. And depending on the speed you set the game at, it'll go faster or slower. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so no, I was saying that one turn in 4000 BC, when you press next turn, it takes away more years, and then as you progress in history, one turn. So in the beginning, maybe one turn is like 100 years, but then when you reach the 1800s AD, one turn might be 20 years. So it becomes slower as you progress in history.
Right, that would make sense.
Yeah. So my warrior has now discovered that there's a tribal village over here. So here's the village right here. And you can see the architecture is very different in terms of what we find in our city.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I want to go explore that. So I'll head that direction.
Also, Shannon, while you're doing that, just in case people aren't seeing in the chat, and maybe Tina and you guys want to talk more about this, they're sending links in the chat to these ASOR conferences that Tina will be presenting at. That are related to all this stuff, so yeah, you can like say that out loud too.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yes, I think Tina should say it.
Since we're going to upload this later to YouTube and there's not going to be stuff in the chat, I don't know if I should say that because people are going to be looking at the chat and there's nothing there on YouTube. So,
Okay, all right. So, yes?
But people on YouTube can go Google it.
Right.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
There's an ASOR conference
Yes.
coming up this month, November.
So you can see here that I've now discovered also a barbarian encampment. And the barbarians are actually more advanced in terms of their weapons than I am right now. So you can see they have spearmen. So to attack them, it would take me many turns. Well, at least 2 or 3. So I'm just going to go over here and explore the village. And I'll reach there next time. If you notice, I stepped onto a hilly area here, so it takes longer.
Okay, so 2 questions.
Yes.
Why do you have giant architecture and they only have spears and you're going to lose?
Well, I'm going to lose because I guess barbarians don't need architecture.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
second question, why are you going to look around in their village?
Well, I'll show you because they're going to give me stuff because that's what villagers do when you visit them. But first you can see that I've discovered pottery. So, yes, I've got this nice vessel right here too. And they have little quotes from famous people about the technology you've discovered. So this is from Plutarch. You can see that in addition to pottery, now I can build a granary. I can build the Great Bath. Yes, and I also can harvest bonus resources by creating a farm.
Ooh, yes.
Yes.
But you didn't have a farm yet?
No, that's why I needed to have pottery.
So you were still a hunter-gatherer, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, sort of.
So now that I've just gone to this village, I now have increased my my sort of skill set towards foreign trade. So this will be faster for me to be able to trade with other sort of civilizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So early on in the game, the things that you develop is stuff that you sort of you have to go through all of this. So you have to go through the invention of pottery and the invention of the code of laws that you see on the top left as well. Just to sort of get there, right? The idea is that you're just in the period that cities were first founded, and the idea, Sid Meier's idea was that in the beginning there are these fundamental things that have to happen, like pottery, for example. So even though it doesn't fit chronologically, it tries to convey the feeling of finding all these new things.
Yes, because we have a pre-pottery period, right? It's an archaeological period called the pre-pottery, and
Yes.
So agriculture was around before pots were baked. So
yeah. But then, of course, the pre-pottery period is several thousand years before.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We're not starting here from prehistorical times.
No. They're not really interested in that. So, because, I mean, they want to have interesting things to look at in the game. And so they want to make sure that it's something that they recognize. Often these civilizations they've created are ones that they're interested in or they're already somewhat popularized. So, very rarely do you have a civilization in the game that there isn't kind of a general knowledge about. Like, if you talk to somebody, randomly, and you say Sumerians or you say Gilgamesh, they might have even heard that term, for example. Whereas if you mention some of the pre-pottery, Neolithic cultures, then they're going to have no idea. Somebody always asks me so I work in Turkey and Bulgaria, but I mostly work before there was anything written down. And they're always asking me, what's the name of the civilization then? And I'm just like, well...
no idea.
So...
That's funny. Somebody asked in the chat, are there specific skills or technologies for specific civilizations? Or does every civilization have to learn the same skills?
So, to some extent, you don't have to get all the skills that are available, but the ones that are available to you are available to everyone.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes to the same linear trajectory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's play on. Let's see what's happening. I love those milk jugs, though.
Yes. It's the universal symbol of milk. So, if you look here, this is a group from a city-state. So this is Preslov. And so you can see it over here. over, in the bottom corner of the screen. So that is not a civilization because it never expands beyond one city. It just stays as one city. But they are people that you can get over to your side by basically trading with them, being nice to them. And if they support you and they're militaristic, they will share their troops with you, for example. Or if you get into, if you start fighting with someone and they're on their side, they'll fight with you. So it's really important to make those kinds of alliances, even though this civilization is not, an actual civilization in terms of the game.
Right.
So over here you can see a barbarian scout. I'm much more likely to be able to fight the barbarian scout than I am the barbarian spearman.
What is happening at the bottom there? You're finding a river?
In the bottom here, so when you explore an area, the screen will open up so that you can see that area, but when you move away, then it will be kind of covered up again by this, fog, so that you don't know exactly what's going on there, but you still have the map in your mind.
And if I can say something about this.
Yeah.
Is the noblest
So,
of all animals.
One thing that they introduced in this game, and it's very interesting also in this particular case, so one thing they introduced now in these expansions as well in Civilization 6 is that the name places that are associated with features, so with mountains or with rivers, will by and large come from a database that is related to your civilization. So in this case, we see we are Uruk, we are Sumeria, and that river on the south that we found is called Habur. So it's the Habur River. And the Habur River, and that is indeed relevant. So the Habur River is a perennial tributary to the Euphrates. But it originates somewhere in Turkey, and the Habur Valley has been the home of various very important sites that have been excavated all across the.
Right, and if you're the first one to explore them, then your civilization kind of gets to put your name on it. So also for the Sumerians, you also get to add the Dialla as an area. So there are a lot of important historical areas that get added, and names of mountains and rivers, as Aris was saying.
And if you want some, just to get the importance of the Habur.
Go ahead.
For any Eastern nerds out there, on the Habur Valley we have sites such as Tel Halaf and Tel Brak and Tel Bari. So really
Those
from
are all big names, not
a lot of big important sites are located along the Habur River and the Habur Valley. We even have a specifically Habur ware that was developed at some point.
Yeah, it's sort of pottery clay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, right. For example, you have this area here. By Preslov, of course. Alright. So now I can research craftsmanship or foreign trade. I think I'll go with foreign trade since I got that boost to it earlier. And then here you come to your first sort of large water area, and you can see there you can have whales as a luxury resource. So you can't actually go into the water until you research, shipbuilding and, are able to actually, cross these areas by ship. You can't just, swim across. So.
Yeah.
But you can hunt from whales from the shore.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Although you have to develop certain technologies to do it.
Oh, well, that makes sense. You can't just grab them by your hands.
No.
In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Anything and everything goes.
In whaling now. Because what? Was that a thing? Do you have evidence of
Whale hunting?
whale hunting?
Back then, no. And certainly not in this area.
Right.
It depends where you are.
No, but they have to put the whales there because you'll be, back then you would have been able to see them at the very least.
Well, okay, so is this something that, again, is in all the civilizations?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it depends. Like resources of various kinds are
Yes.
in all. Like, of course, it has evolved over time. But yeah, stuff like whales and like sea-related resources have been there for a few civilizations now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
is there
Go.
options of what you can do with this whale? Like you kill a whale, and then what can you can eat it, or you can use its fat for oil, or you can
No, you should think about these resources in a bit of a more abstract way. So some fish-related resources provide your cities with extra food, right? And then some other resources are luxury resources. So whether it's whales or it's tea or it's whatever, it remains a luxury resource. So it's up for trade or it boosts your economy. And then some other resources like oil is needed for a specific unit or for a specific building. So it's a bit more abstract than whales are specifically to get the whale, to get the whale out. Like this actually never happens. You just fish the whales and then stuff happens with it.
Pigs.
Oh, now we have animal husbandry. Yes.
Yes.
Now
Now
we're getting
those cows will actually be important to me.
a bit of a weird Winston Churchill quote that goes with these sheep.
Yes, the quotes don't necessarily come from ancient figures. I kind of imagine when they're developing the game that they're thinking what famous person said something about sheep or so.
Then it talks about cats and dogs.
Yes, exactly.
Like one thing that we did actually is we tried, so when we played Civilization 6 for the first time, and we tried to see exactly this about the quote. So every time we would end up with a quote, we would actually look it up and see to what extent this quote is actually Googleable. And and it ends up that there are all these quote websites that if you put a word, then it gives you a quote, and most of them come because sometimes you get these random people. Like there is a quote from a random CEO of a company, and we have no idea why this quote is there. It's like just a random dude, but his quote ends up on a lot of quote websites, and that's how they pick it probably. So yeah, some of them, they find something and they're like, oh, it's a quote by Aristotle. Let's put that one in there because it's Aristotle. And sometimes they can't find anything, so they go with the first quote that popped up on Google.
Wow, and that's how you get all these misconceptions that the Dalai Lama said that, but then he never actually said it.
Yes.
Yeah.
At some point.
I mean, it's one of these things that if you put like one or two interns that work on your company to actually investigate these things properly, then it's relatively easily fixable without investing too many resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not many people complain about it, so why would you fix it?
Yeah.
So I can now go build another city. Now that I have this settler. And if you look at the screen, I'll zoom out here, you can see that there are some green areas, and the green areas are the places where it's best to build a city. And the ones where they've got an image of a city and the buildings there, like over here, those are the ones that they say are the best. It's not necessarily always the case. It's done through an algorithm. You're this far from another civilization, you're this close to this many resources. Maybe you don't want those resources, though. Or maybe you want to be even farther. So you can't necessarily always go with what they say. But it is still helpful.
Sometimes you do have to think in this game.
Yes, sometimes you do, yes. The problem is if I send out this settler without anyone with them, they will probably get attacked, and then I won't get actually able to build a city because the barbarians will take them.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
So what I can do is I could see if I can purchase something. So it looks like I could purchase a warrior. So or a slinger. So if I get one of these things, they'll probably be okay until I get where I'm going. Like I said, I put this on a pretty easy setting. So I'll probably go with the slinger. And then next turn, I'll be able to move them somewhere and build a city. And then now, I probably want to go with, let's say, I'll do a builder so that we can actually build something around the city. And they'll be ready in about 6 turns.
So where is north here on this map?
So north is up, of course, and south is down.
So, but because I saw a lot of snow, so what is that snow region?
So it probably means that we are near the southern part, like the southernmost part of the map. So both the top and the bottom of the map usually have a lot of snow in them.
Oh, so this is not really like the Antarctic or...
So it's near the southern edge of the map, which is thought of as like the Antarctic, and then the northern edge of the map is thought of as the Arctic, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not really realistic, as
No.
in like area we're not so close to.
No. No.
Okay.
Normally, where the Sumerians settle is not too close to the Antarctic or the Arctic.
I'm just trying to understand how
No,
much
it's
accurate and how much is gameplay.
So, in terms of the map itself, you should not think of the map as accurate at any rate, right? The map is, I mean, you can, in theory, play in a map that is the world.
Had rivers and mountains that actually exist in that region. So
Yeah, so what happens is that you get like names that are related to your civilization. So a mountain that is close to your civilization will have a name that is related to your civilization or to your geographical area, but that doesn't make it like geographically correct.
not in its exact location where it should be.
It's also not like, okay, we have the Habur River. It doesn't mean that there is a Euphrates next to it, right? It's
Right.
just the fact that you get names related to your civilization, and then the map itself is automatically generated. So it's not always the same. You can have some general settings for the map, so you can have a lot of islands, or you can have a couple of big continents. Or if you want, you can set the actual world.
Who
and then
deserves
you
more
play on a
credit
map
than the
of the
wife
world.
of a coal miner?
So it really depends, but by and large, you play in automatically generated maps that have nothing to do with accuracy. It's just an interesting map to play on.
Okay. So Shannon, somebody asked, do you use this game for teaching purposes?
So I don't use the game for teaching purposes, but I do find that we've met a civilization. Sorry. They introduce themselves in their own language, so.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't hear the Hungarian.
Oh, I was probably talking over it too much.
No, that's fine.
So I don't use it in my classes to teach, but I know that some students will ask me about the civilizations that they have learned about in playing games like this. Although usually it's Assassin's Creed, and they will ask me, is that accurate? And they'll be like, oh, I really want to research this for my final paper because I played this thing in Assassin's Creed usually. I really like all the Viking stuff, or I really like all the Egyptian stuff. So it's definitely something that sparks interest in students playing games that introduce them to these civilizations.
Yeah, because Aris, didn't you present, or your group present something in the conference yesterday on how people who play historical games find it important that they are accurate?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did recently was a really big survey, and so the interesting thing about this is that there are conflicting. So people both want their games to be accurate, but also not in a way, right? So they want them to be accurate, but they still want them to be fun. And if something happens that, it makes it accurate, but then it stops being fun, then they also don't perceive it as accurate necessarily. So it's one of these very interesting topics in the broader concept of archaeogaming. What is accuracy and
As
to
our
what
civic
extent
knowledge grows,
we want
so do our methods of
accuracy.
government.
That's a
So
positive
very
aspect
recently,
of
the recent
trade, I
volume
suppose.
that was
The
published
world
by
gets stirred up together.
Martin Lorber and Felix Zimmermann. It's called History in Games. I'll put a link in the chat. It's called History in Games: Contingencies of an Authentic Past. And there in that volume, a lot of people talk about the various ways that accuracy is used and to what extent it is needed or not, and what can accuracy do for us or take away for that matter. I'm gonna find the book and put it in the chat.
Yeah, because there's also a difference between accuracy and authentic, right? Being authentic.
Yes.
Then you don't always
Yes.
have to be accurate as long as it's like
May I
in the
make a
ballpark of authentic. It could have been that way.
Right.
Yeah, so this
yeah.
is one of the things that Angus presented about in regards to the whole controversy with Battlefield and female combatants in World War One, and the fact that some people were up in arms that this is not historically accurate in a game that has like grappling hooks and all sorts of robotic add-ons and whatnot. So yeah, it's a very contested term, and oftentimes it takes a very political turn as well, because of course history is very political. So things that have to do with
Right.
historical authenticity will also be political.
I mean, you don't in a game. You don't want to be playing a game and then find out, at some point in accurate or historical, documents, your civilization or your group just gets destroyed completely and they're done playing. I mean, no one wants to just have their game end, because they picked the wrong group to play as, right?
Yeah.
So.
Oops, you died.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's another thing there that has a little bit to do with our science as well. Like, in theory, also in practice, what we say as historians or archaeologists is also not exactly accurate, because, of course, anything that we find is always an interpretation of an incomplete data set, right? So we always assume things and we have to fill in. Of course, it's a more informed interpretation of the evidence because we study those evidence, but in a way, accuracy is a very, like, nothing can ever be 100% accurate because we just don't know.
Exactly. We had a discussion last week when we did our panel on gender in ancient Israel, where we were also saying that we put our own biases on the past quite often, right? It's called presentism, where you put the present on the past, and so we are making educated guess of material culture that we find or text that we read and interpret of this is how it probably would have been used like, or how it was, or how society looked like. But that's coming from our own modern perceptions, and so we try our best. But yes, was it really that way? Probably not. Probably nothing that we've ever seen in any movie or whatever was exactly like how it was. But
right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're playing a game, and you might want to pick like your character, but for this game, you have Gilgamesh. You can play as Gilgamesh and play the Sumerians, or you could not. That's it,
Yeah.
So,
and then you get to be Gilgamesh forever, right? Gilgamesh never dies.
Exactly. Gilgamesh lives forever. Indeed.
That is also like a thing, but.
So I built a ziggurat. If you want to see it here.
Yes.
Let's see the ziggurat.
Yes.
Oh, and I know, Aris, you have done some research on ziggurats in video games.
Yeah.
So you probably have something to say about this.
Yes, I see.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did is to look at ziggurats across games and the way that and what is a ziggurat to us today. And of course, a ziggurat, we have this very broad understanding that ziggurat is anything that is stepped, basically. And then we can go into the specific semiotics of what a ziggurat is. In this game, in particular, of course, it's connected with the Sumerians. It makes a lot of sense. The first ziggurats were actually created in ancient Mesopotamia, and it's not that it's a bad interpretation of a ziggurat here, it's not great either. So it's a step platform with basically two steps buttresses around it, which is very historically accurate as well. It's very interesting that they chose to include these buttresses and then a temple at the top. Usually what we see in this case, in a more abstract sense, and in most games as well, is that the ziggurats are based on the reconstruction of the ziggurat of Ur that has been reconstructed in Iraq during the Saddam Hussein era. And it's the thing that you see today, which is a combination between the original Ur-Nammu ziggurat and later Babylonian reconstruction of it. But by and large, ziggurats are, in this game, the ziggurats are simply connected with science and with culture, and it's one of the best, not the best interpretations in terms of how it looks, but one of the best interpretations in how they are integrated with your civilization. So in most games we see ziggurats being sort of places of fear, places of struggle and battle and mysticism, and all the bad things are happening in ziggurats. In civilization, that's not the case. In civilization, we have also in the previous games, in the previous installments where you had ziggurats, they were often connected with administration, which is true. Temples in the ancient Near East were very much connected with administration, connected with culture and science. So this is very nice in this case.
So what are the two golden boxes at the bottom of that ziggurat?
This is one of these features. Also, the dome at the top of the temple. These are just, they have nothing to do with what we know from the ziggurats. These are just things, elements that have been added. Yeah. So also the domed thing at the top. Generally, you see in Eastern civilizations, in the game Civilization, we have a lot of domed architecture because there is this broader perception that Eastern cultures have domed architecture, which is a very, I'm now too afraid to say an Orientalist approach to Near Eastern civilizations, but by and large, it's one of these things that we understand the East as, okay, domed architecture, it's probably coming from the East, so any Eastern civilization has some kind of domed architecture, right? Even though Sumerians didn't have domed architecture at all.
There are a lot of assumptions that go into building and creating the buildings in the games, just because they want it to be visually appealing. So.
It still looks very pretty. The color schemes and the 3D cartoon graphics. It looks very pretty.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and the cartoony graphics is something that a lot of people initially were unhappy with because.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, if you have played Civilization 4 or previous civilizations, they were not. They were a little bit more serious on quotes. And from 5 to, especially in 6, you have this more cartoony approach, and a lot of people were
recently gained advanced knowledge.
We're not happy with this because it doesn't look serious enough for history. I also like it. I think it gives a lot of freedom, and then it gives a lot of creative space for designers to make things a little bit more interesting. Not necessarily accurate, but just more interesting in terms of visuals.
I feel like there's already too many dark games that are being made. I like colorful things.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that a lot better.
Yeah, so one of the things that it does, and that can be a little bit contested. So one of the things that we analyzed in the previous paper we did with Angus and Sheila on Civilization is that it creates euphemistic histories. So the histories produced by the game are always nice. Nice as in you're always winning, you're always progressing, you're always the good person or the good civilization. So it has a euphemistic approach, and then the cartoony nature plays on that euphemism. So it makes history a happy place, which I think we view history as a very dark place, which we shouldn't. But because history was also, there is also happiness in history, but it's also not only that. So a euphemistic history also erases slavery and erases all sorts of other stuff that this game ignored.
Right.
But that's something
that's again one of those choices if you want to have fun gameplay or not. And I think most people know from many other games that there was a lot of violence and misery and stuff going on. So.
Right, and you can find plenty of people who complain about inaccuracies in the game, but at the same time they will still say, "But I love playing the game." So they just love to complain about it. So
Right. And an interesting question that also came up to me during your conference, Aris, yesterday, was that these kind of strategy games are always linear, right? And so I asked on Twitter, what does it even mean to win history? Because in all these games, you win if you have dominated everything and you are the world in power. They don't win with a peaceful society where all cultures live together and everybody is lend their honor and everything is pretty and there's no more violence.
Yeah. So one of the things that we argue in our presentations in general and our research, at least what we've done with Angus in relation to civilization, is that civilization takes an end of history approach. So what that means is, if you so Francis Fukuyama, back in 1990, he argued that after the end of the Cold War, we reached the end of history. And with the end of history, he meant Western liberal democracies is the peak of human political evolution. We can't go any better than that. Democracy, on quotes, won against the Soviet threat at that point, and that's it. We reached the end of history. And because, in an interesting way, because the game itself was developed and released in 1991, and Sid Meier is American Canadian, and he was very much influenced by it because he was reading a lot of historical books that were produced in the States. He has very much this teleological view, even if unconsciously. He doesn't. He never said that he subscribes to this end of history approach. But if you see how the game plays and then compare it to what Fukuyama wrote, it compares extremely extremely well. So it has this idea that we indeed there is an end point to history, and it's not. I now talk about Fukuyama because she is the one who came up with the term end of history. But this is not still an idea that's very popular. So if you read books by Yuval Noah Harari, for example, he also talks about, he wrote this book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, which has a similar approach that we don't have to change too much in our society because we've reached the peak. We just have to adjust it a little bit and we'll still be fine, right? Because Western liberal democracy is the peak of civilization. So it sort of plays on that very much because this is also the popular notion.
Wow, that is super fascinating. Can I ask, does this game also do the same with religion? Does it like end in Christianity?
So no, with religion you can pick whichever religion you want. So as long as you've developed enough faith, and by this point in the game we have enough faith to choose a pantheon. So the pantheon is kind of considered early religion. And so you pick one of these things, like you believe in a goddess of the hunt, for example, right here, or a river goddess, and then you get these kind of bonuses to your civilization. But once you advance enough that you can found a religion, you can choose any of them. And you can even make up your own now. It used to be that you could only choose one of the religions that actually exists now, but now you can make up your own. But even if you make up your own or you choose one, you still are choosing from a list of bonuses from having that religion that anyone can choose from.
Okay, but you have to choose a religion.
Yes. Well, you don't have to, but it gives you so many bonuses that if you don't choose one, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Okay, so atheism does not give you any bonuses, I see.
No.
But also not to have any misunderstandings in regards to governments. The game itself doesn't say that you have to play as democracy. You can very much play as fascism or as communism or whatever you want. As long as the idea of the end of history is that one civilization always wins, right?
Yeah.
It's the one thing that dominates everything else. It's not necessarily the thing that we know. It can be something else. And also that whole religion. As Shannon said, you can do whatever you want.
Right. It's indeed not like what I said. You don't win history with many different cultures living in friendship next to each other and trade with each other. You just don't have to dominate the entire map with just one culture, one religion.
In one way or another. So you can have them live free as long as they subscribe to your religion, or you can have them live free as long as you are the technologically more advanced, but you can have them live free as long as they are under your military domination.
Okay.
Exactly.
Forced freedom.
Yes. And now I can build Stonehenge if I want.
Oh, well, that is not accurate at all.
But I'm sure that the Sumerians would have built it if they had known about it.
Well, this is the same thing. You can build any, like, historically known building in any civilization at any place.
Well, any of these wonders, which are special buildings that only one civilization can build. So if you build Stonehenge, then no one else can build it. So you're the only one who gets those specific bonuses from it.
So if you're playing multiplayer, there's only one player on the map that can have it.
Exactly.
I see.
And also, the same holds true for now. If another civilization that we are playing against builds it, then we still cannot build it. And interestingly, two civilizations can start building one monument, one wonder at the same time, and the one that ends first, if you were building it as well, then yours is cancelled because somebody else got there first.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Yeah, that is really annoying.
There's always a race to build the Oracle, for example.
The Delphi Oracle?
Yes, of course. What other Oracle is there?
Oh, there was only one. What is that symbol? The clay?
Where? Here?
No, where you were on the map, there's like pinkish. Is that a tube or?
Up here?
Copper pipes.
Yes. Copper. Yes,
okay.
and the pipe is how they represent it. And here is jade, represented as this jade dragon.
Ooh, that is pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in the Far East.
Only in terms of resources, because right here we have the Euphrates.
Oh yes. Which makes the other one. Does it?
It does not automatically make it that, no. No, so, and as Aris is saying, you don't necessarily have things next to each other that are next to each other. It's just that if you're the civilization who first explores that part of the map, they kind of, give your name to it.
Interesting. Okay, what should we do next?
So a lot of things just happen. So for now, for example, we are still getting to archery or getting to mysticism. The first, so as the genre of the game denotes, the 4Xs, now we're still in this expanding, exploring and expanding phase. So
Yes.
we need to expand on the map, and we need to be building other cities as well. So now we have two cities. I forgot which one was the second city.
Yes, so we have Sipar.
Sipar, yeah.
It's another famous site.
Yeah.
Yes.
And after your first two cities, then there is sort of a pool of city names that the game randomly chooses from. So you can also be Larka or Babylon or whatever, and they will happen randomly after that
My
point.
liege, we have an envoy at our disposal.
And do the cities all look the same?
Yeah.
Yes.
Symbol
Yeah.
for the universal one.
The only difference is the landscape that you build them on.
Okay.
Which also allows them to develop differently,
Yes.
more quickly, or more
Our
focused on production,
city-state neighbors have made a
food production, or some other type of facilities. You can also build universities on your cities. You can build churches. You can build all sorts of stuff. And depending on where you are, some tiles give you bonus.
So other question, when you start playing like in the future,
Yeah.
so after 2020, are there buildings that we haven't even invented yet that come into play?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like which ones? I want to see what's going to happen in the future. This game is going to enlighten me.
Yeah, so we have some time before we get there. We're still very early on in the
Unfortunately, yes.
game. Like, we're not gonna get there now, but you get to
Well, no,
build.
but you have gotten there, so I assume that you know what's coming.
Yeah, you can build all sorts of like cities on the water, and you can build spaceships. And
Yeah,
there are all
but
sorts of-
yeah, you can't really travel to other planets though, or anything like that. You have to play the other Sid Meier games to do that. No, if really, all the games that were developed by Sid Meier, those ones are really just based on one land, and you don't really, move around off of, that planet that you're on, that space that you're on. So, they don't really, you can get to the space race, but like nothing happens after that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And one of the interesting things for the future is that you can have futuristic governments, is what it's called.
Yeah.
And then you can have like a social media democracy and these kind of things. Which, granted,
This
it's
is
not,
coming after.
not very futuristic right now. It's kind of
Yes.
current, but-
Yes, exactly.
The man was a visionary.
yeah.
Well, I don't know how much Sid Meier himself came up with that idea for this game. The idea of this, that kind of democracy is, I think it's only from this game, right, Aris?
Yeah, this is on
Yeah.
futuristic these futuristic
Right.
governments, I think, were now.
Right. Up until Civ 6, they really only went up to democracy. And I think you could choose from democracy or communism. Those are,
Yeah, or fascism.
or fascism. Yeah, those were your choices until recently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I can find all the, let me see. Yeah, for modern, in Civilization 6, you have communism, democracy, and fascism. And then for the information age, that's how it's called, you have digital democracy, and you have synthetic technocracy, and corporate libertarianism.
Oh, wow. That sounds a little bit too realistic for the moment.
Yeah, I know, it's like the information age governments, and yeah, it's sort of loosely based on the things that are going on now.
Yeah. But in the end, the different governments don't change much in the way that you play. If you want to be more militaristic and you want to fight with people, you want to have a government that allows you to have more bonuses to your military. But other than that, it's really just all about the bonuses that you get. That's all you really care about as you are changing your government. So you can pick a theocracy if you want, because you not because you care about religion so much as religion is a bonus you need in that game.
Right. Still a game.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, although I have to say, whenever I play Civilization, except now we sort of now in our series that we're streaming, we're trying to play with Byzantium and religion. But by and large, I always ignore religion. I never do anything with
Oh,
religion.
really?
Like,
Nothing?
nothing. I can't.
For a choice, Aris?
It's a choice, but I also find the religious gameplay very tedious and boring.
It is.
like,
It
what
is
I
tedious.
really don't. So
But I
never-
feel like if I don't do it at all, then something horrible goes wrong. Because
Yeah, whatever.
the other civilizations try to conquer me by religion. Then, if I don't have one.
Oh, you can't control the population. They're gonna find a god somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then you can sort of find ways around it rather than having to do it by yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes. Is there anything that you still would like to show us?
Unfortunately, the game just kind of goes as it goes. So I don't know if Aris, if there's something you want me to try and pull up, I can try and do that. But
No, I mean, we can, because by and large we've talked about the basics of the game, and then of course, the more you go into it, all sorts of other stuff come up that merit discussion. Like you have this World Congress kind of thing that's sort of like the United Nations analogy, and you have other technologies coming up that are interesting to discuss, but you start gradually getting into the details of the game and why have they made certain choices.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see how we have only just like scratched the surface of this.
Right. There's so much more to go into in terms of like voting strategies once you have this, United Nations like thing, and also building near coasts becomes dangerous in this particular version because sea levels rise.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So as I said, we've done about 100 hours of streaming of Civilization. So I can put down if somebody really wants to watch a lot of Civilization, I can put down a playlist where you can watch us.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
And one thing that people who want to study this game more closely or want to learn more about it, very recently there was released a book called Sid Meier's Memoir,
Yes.
which is basically Sid Meier telling his story to a ghostwriter who wrote it down. And it starts from the very early games that Sid Meier developed all the way to Civilization 6, basically. And there you can get a lot of insights on some of the choices that were made and why or how Sid Meier ended up going for certain stuff, which might, solve some of the mysteries or the questions that we have as to why did they do that or why did they start with pottery and so on.
So do they have any historical researchers, historians on their projects?
No, not specifically, but they would sometimes ask for assistance from people to give them advice on certain civilizations, but they didn't, hire them. So it was more, we're working on this civilization. What can you tell us about it? And then they would take what they thought was useful and what they didn't think was useful would kind of go over there. And so, yeah, that's kind of been their strategy for all of the civilizations.
Yeah, that makes
Unlike Assassin's Creed now has Maxime Durand, so sort of a resident historian, but also in Assassin's Creed earlier they were doing this on a consultancy basis, and that's how they approach it on Civilization as well. There's this broader 30 seconds Wikipedia rule that I guess it sort of applies across the board. Like they are googling this kind of stuff, and if you can find it on Wikipedia within 30 seconds, then that's the knowledge you're going with.
Right.
Okay.
And I wanted to show you, this is what Stonehenge looks like when it's being built.
Ooh.
Right here.
Very pretty. Yeah, I was just talking to a friend yesterday who is a consultant or something like that for a new TV series they're making on the life of Jesus.
Huh.
And he says every time that they consult me, it's after the fact. They're like, well, we filmed like this and this. Is that accurate? Like, no. I was like, well, it's already been done.
Right, of course.
So at this point, he's like, I do not want my name on the credits because you keep asking when it's too late, and then I can't do anything about it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more about getting the credibility that, we had a historian in there, and you can often, like as a developer, just justify a choice by saying, well, yeah, we know, but we did this for X and Y reasons. And then sometimes just helps having the historian to say, yeah, they did ask me at some point.
Take pride. Okay, well, I fear we are out of time.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Shannon and Aris, for doing this and enlightening me about this game that I've never played before. It was great to have you. Any last words, Shannon?
I think what I would just say is that it's a fun game to play, but there are a lot of inaccuracies, and there are plenty of people who talk about them, like Aris and myself, and a lot of people who just write about the game online. So if you are interested in playing the game, you can always go find out more about the different civilizations in it. Plus, the game has this in-game Civilopedia, which is kind of their version of Wikipedia, so it's a good place to start, but not necessarily a good place to finish.
Yeah.
Wise words. Aris?
No, thank you very much
and thank
for
you.
having me here as well. It was a lot of fun. I'm always excited to talk about Civilization after so many hours of playing this game. And yeah, hopefully we get to do more of this.
Yes, I hope so too. So we will have another gaming event in December that we are working on. Don't know yet what game it will be, but we will have another one. And then going on in the spring too. So we hope to do one of these every month. So if you have any requests, or if you play a game yourself and you have some historical facts to tell us about, please let me know, and we can invite you to come on our channel and play a game with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And
It was
we
fun.
see each other in about a month.
All right.
Bye.
All right, I'll stop streaming.